Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever one is for you. We are so glad that see many of you have joined us tonight or today, according to your time. So, warm welcome to all of you joining us today. I would also like to welcome my co-host, Mr. Sokar Sleman, who will later be focusing on Professor David Crystal's stylistics and his panel contribution to Shakespeare's OP, original pronunciation. So we are very fortunate to have her insiders as part of this program. As an introduction, Mr. Sokar is BA in English Language and Literature. She holds MA also in English Language and Literature, especially in literature and short story, science fiction. She taught so many different courses in universities like Saladin University, in college, both College of Basic Education and College of Education. So, Mr. Sokar, if you can hear me, hello and welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, dear Mamusta, very respected Dr. Sangar, and thank you for your kind words talking about me. I'm very happy to be today joining you in this meeting. Inshallah, we will be focusing on David Crystal's contribution in literature, especially in stylistics, and his groundbreaking works in original pronunciation in Shakespeare's plays. Please go ahead. You start, and then later we'll continue, inshallah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you too. Well, now, as many of you know that have received note that unfortunately Professor David Crystal cannot be with us alive this evening due to his health reasons, but he has been kind, recorded a powerful video speech reflecting on, let's say, the future of language, linguistics, on, let's say, the many important issues shaping the field today. So we will hear from him shortly, but before we do so, I would like to take few minutes indeed, to reflect on Professor David Crystal's extraordinary contribution to the study of language. Just give me a minute to share my slides. Good, thank you. So, Professor David Crystal shaping the way we see language. A lifelong journey in linguistics for Professor David Crystal started where he was born in Lisburn in 1941, raised in Holyhead, North Wales, and studied English at University College of London, and began research the survey of English usage under the Randolph Quirk. I guess that Randolph Quirk is also a famous name for you, especially in the field of grammar. He began act as a lecturer at the Bangor University from 63 to 65, then at the Reading University from 65 to 84. Then later on, he gained his honorary professor of linguistics at Bangor. So he authored over 100 books. Yes, more than 100 books indeed. I have with me some of them. For example, that one, this Dictionary of Linguistics and Phonetics. That one on English language, that talks about how English language became dominant. Take, for example, this one. It is what is so-called to be a booklet, but it's indeed an encyclopedia in terms of content. Everyone that's here, if you have ever read an intro book of linguistics, you do know that every intro book usually starts with a traditional question, which is, what is linguistics? While this one starts what linguistics is not. One of the things that stands out about Professor Crystal's work is how he's always made linguistics accessible through his encyclopedic works and his introductions. I do mean that the two encyclopedia that have been published by the Cambridge University Press. So through his encyclopedic works and his introductions, he opened up the field to people who might never have studied it before. I mean, students, teachers, linguists, and even everyday readers. So another key contribution is how he reshaped our understanding of the history of English traditionally. The story of English focused on standards from forms, the language of schools, governments, and even literature. Later on, Mr. Sokar, I think, will talk about this in detail. Excellent slides about the stories of English. Uh, so Professor Crystal shifted the focus. I mean, he reminded us that uh, every variety of English has a story to tell. That the dialects and everyday ways of speaking are just as important as the official ones. It's a much more, democratic, inclusive way of thinking about language history. And it gave a voice back to the people who had often been left out of the story. As you can see on the screen, of course, his work also explored English as a global dominant language. English today connects people across every continent. So it's a language of opportunity, as people say, of science, communication, but it can also create, challenges. Professor Cristol's perspective here has always been balanced. I mean, he recognized the influence of English, but also emphasized the importance of linguistic diversity. So his message was clear. English doesn't have to replace other languages. It can coexist with them. So multilingualism is the way forward. Uh, yes, as you can see, this book is connected with one of his deepest commitments that talks about endangered languages, preserving languages, documenting languages. He has spoken so passionately about the tragedy of language death, reminding us that when a language disappears, when a language dies, we lose far more than words. We lose a way of seeing the world. So, but he didn't just stop at warning us. He also gave us hope. He showed that with effort, communities can revitalize and even bring languages back to life. So his voice has been a rallying cry for linguists and communities worldwide, like before just too late. As you can see, for example, that book, Internet Linguistics, and that one, Text, the great debate. Uh, Maybe many of you remember that in recent decades, he also became one of the first linguists to take the internet seriously. Well, many people, including linguists, well, let me say, including myself, uh, you know, worried that texting, email, or social media even were destroying language. He looked more closely and saw something else entirely. He saw creativity, playfulness, and new ways of connecting. So he argued that far from killing language die, the digital world was giving us new forms of expression. In a scene, he showed us that we're living through one of the greatest experiments in language change ever. As you can see, also he also uh, covered discover grammar, and his approach to grammar has been refreshing. As you know, that for many people, grammar is scary, something full of rules to memorize. But Professor Crystal helped us to see it differently. So he showed that grammar is alive. It is about choice we make every day when we speak or write. It's not a barrier, it's a resource. So grammar in his hands became not about restrictions, but about possibilities also. Well, as I mentioned it before, that he has authored over more than 100 books. So what you are seeing on the screen is some of them. Some of these books are, have been co-authored with other linguists, by the way. This is the last slide. So when you back, step back and look at everything, clear theme runs through his life's work. Linguistics that is open, inclusive, and deeply human. So he has reminded us that language is more than an academic subject. It is identity, it is culture, it is history, and it is even future. So with that, it's our honor to introduce Professor David Crystal's special recorded message, as um, where he reflects on AI, artificial intelligence, the future of linguistics, and as he so beautifully puts it, the brave new world that awaits us. So let me share his powerful speech.
Well, many thanks everyone for your interest in my work. I'm sorry I can't participate in your event in a live way, but I'm happy to make some comments in relation to the very interesting questions you sent me. In one of them, you ask about the most significant trends shaping English today, and in another about the rise of digital communication. You also ask about the future of linguistics in relation to globalization and language contact. Well, to my mind, these are all related issues. Mind you, predicting the future in relation to language is never wise. It means predicting the future of global society and of technology. Think for a moment about the speed of change. A mere 5 years ago, nobody was talking about AI. Now everybody is. And people are asking what effect it could have on the global status of English, and of course on languages as a whole. So I'll focus on that in these few remarks. Now, as with the internet generally, it's far too soon to make any confident predictions. Everything depends on what will be the, as it were, the power behind the AI throne. The history of language shows over and over that a language becomes internationally used because of the political or economic or other power of the people who speak it. It'll be no different with this new kind of power. Whoever becomes the dominant force behind AI will exercise linguistic influence both on languages in general and on varieties of a language in particular. In some ways, the situation is no different from what happened when the internet arrived in the 1990s. There was a widespread expectation then, I remember it well, that there would be major linguistic change. We now know, over 30 years later, that that didn't happen. The internet simply gave an online voice to what was already linguistically out there. Yes, there were some novelties, such as some new abbreviations, especially associated with text messaging, and new communicative styles reflecting the constraints of short messaging services, for instance. But the overall use of the language today is not very different from what it was before the internet arrived. It would be more accurate to say that English and other languages has expanded rather than changed. New varieties increasing its expressive richness. Now, AI, in my mind, is doing the same thing, but of course on a much larger scale. It's giving a new linguistic presence to what is already there. As we know, AI operations such that they suck up as much linguistic data as they can before the present responses to questions. The output can only be as good as the input. So I'm not expecting to see any significant differences in the linguistic character of the responses that an AI algorithm produces. I've looked at several such outputs, as I expect many of you have, and there have been no surprises to date, really. What I have noted is the predominance of American English in spelling and punctuation, and occasionally in vocabulary and grammar, as the USA is where the big guys currently are. Power, once again. Well, that could change if bigger guys emerge in other parts of the English-speaking world. Or, of course, if even bigger guys in other language communities eventually come to dominate the AI universe. However, from the point of view of language teaching, there could be some change affecting the role of teachers. I suspect they will need to become more like knowledge managers. What AI comes up with is accurate enough, as it merely reflects what has been imported by the algorithms. It's what AI doesn't say in its summaries that is the issue. It presents, inevitably, only a partial picture. And I can imagine classroom scenarios where the teacher knows that there's more to an AI answer than is being shown on screen. So knowledge managers, perhaps. Cultural knowledge is likely to be especially affected. You ask about that. A generalization will be made that simply doesn't apply to many situations. And without teacher guidance, students will innocently assume it's universally valid. As AI improves its scope, global cultural varieties will be increasingly acknowledged and invalid generalizations will reduce, certainly. Indeed, some systems are already alerting readers to the limitations of their responses and incorporating some features of global dialect variation. But for the immediate future, and some argue for the long-term future as well, there's no replacing the human intuition that can take an AI response and judge its accuracy and its applicability. Well, yeah, language is central to all this, isn't it? And so it's obvious that linguistics will continue to have a major role to play in describing and analysing all that's happening and drawing attention to problematic issues. I can imagine psycholinguistics and sociolinguistics, these perspectives being especially important. Could well be the biggest contribution to public understanding that the subject has ever made. And you ask about young students. Well, who better to develop this new field? What should we call it? AI linguistics. Well, they live in an online world in a way that older linguists like me do not. So I end this brief reflection with a warm wave to them as they set out on their journey into this new linguistic world. As Shakespeare nearly said, "O brave new world that has such algorithms in it." Bye for now.
I wonder how many goodly creatures are there here, how many beauteous mankind is, a brave new world that has such people in it. That was from Shakespeare, Tempest, Act 5, Scene 1. So no more words from me. I will leave you with you and Mr. Sokar and her excellent slides on Professor David Crystal's Stylistics and the OP. Mr. Sokar, just go on, please.
Thank you, Mama. I will share my slides and then we will start. I will be talking about the contributions of David Crystal on literature and his impact, as he has a great impact on English literature, because what he did with OP, with the restaging, reproduction of Shakespeare's works, plays, is immense. And his contribution in stylistics, as you all know, stylistics is a branch of applied linguistics that focus on the language of the text, any text. But as my specialization is literature, so I will be talking about only the literary text. And David Crystal, he has a very nice thing when he says, when he studies stylistics, he says, writers bend and breaks linguistic rules. But when, why, and how do they bend and break the linguistic rules? We will go on. For example, if we look at this example by Shakespeare in Henry V, we have, you can see this word vasty. If we go back to that time, such a word was not existed. Yes, vast was a word and it was used, in even Shakespeare himself used it, vast, but why vasty? Why did he need to create this word? Why did he need this extra why? Why not going for another word? Then once you look at the line, you find out that Shakespeare, yes, he needed that why to complete the number of the syllables for the sake of metric, for the sake of poetic and the rhythm of the line. So that pretty explains why Shakespeare even created new words, because what he did, as many people, or let's say the historians and the linguists find about Shakespeare, that he has created many words. But what he did, it was for the need of these words, that they were not existed at that time. So let's go to OP. What's OP? It's the reconstruction of Shakespeare's texts, like pronouncing the words, pronouncing the works of Shakespeare as they were pronounced at the time of Elizabethan, during Elizabethan time. As for your information, we call that time, the language of that time, we called early modern English. As David Crystal in his writings points out, that many people find early modern English very foreign, not even English, because they find it very difficult. Yes, it is sometimes in some parts, but if you look closely to it, yes, there are some grammatical forms, some forms of the sentence that are not quite similar to ours. They are different, but they are not that different. So if you are somebody who knows English, yes, you can understand the majority of the texts. But what you can't understand, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he says it's only 5%. You only find the difficult words, difficult forms of sentences, difficult parts only in 5% of his works. And once in the modern age, when the plays were staged, they were pronounced in modern English. And that was what Crystal found it as a problem, because the text lost its originality. So why OP? This is the question that, let's say, pushed Crystal to try such a project. Because with OP, we restore the rhymes and the rhythms of the lines. For example, if you look at it, we will look at examples in the next slides. Yes. For example, if you look at the first two lines, if you pronounce in modern English, you say one and alone, the last two words, which they don't rhyme in modern English. But if you pronounce in let's say the OP, original pronunciation, they both rhyme, on and alone. They both rhyme. The other examples, stars and wars, Again, with modern pronunciation, they don't rhyme, but with OP, they rhyme. Stars, wars. Another reason why OP, it brings back literary, let's say, the puns and jokes. Again, there are many examples with this. You can search and find them out. But I didn't want it very long presentation. That's why I didn't include many things here. One of the very interesting things that I found while reading and researching about David Crystal is, sorry, I think it just disappeared. Yes. It is this speech by David Crystal. So reading a text is a meeting of minds, and when the minds are separated by 400 years of linguistic change, we must expect some difficulties. So yes, you shouldn't expect to, like reading Shakespeare, which was written 400 years ago, you shouldn't expect it like as our language, because language is evolving and it doesn't stop with a generation. So yes, and it's kind of interesting as two minds, and one in the modern age and one in that time, they meet. And so you, of course, you shouldn't expect it very easy, like just like ours, because the social, the cultural, the everything's different. So there's also another example of like you should understand the social let's say the social norms at that time to understand the texts. For example, using though and you back then during Elizabethan time, it was used though for singular and you for plural. But even in Shakespeare's texts, you can see that sometimes he uses you as singular and then why. So once you go back and research, you find out that yes, you was used for reasons like when inferiors talking to superiors, when we want to be intimate, when talking about when speaking to God. In this kind of situations, you was used instead of though. And also it was like an imitation to French, which was quite popular at the time. People were imitating or using words and phrases from other languages. Yeah, it's once you study a language, when you study a text, you can separate all these forms, and this is what David Crystal did. They are all interconnected. They are like you have to study them alongside to each other. Even in one of his writings, he says you can't study the let's say the language of Shakespeare alone. You have to study the language of Elizabethan era, and even you can't study the Elizabethan era with I mean, excluding Shakespeare. They are both interconnected. And as Master Sanger, he mentioned the stories of English, so I'm not going to let's say over clarify. In the stories of English, he mentions how language evolves, and he gives priorities to the original dialects, non-standard language, because they affect the language as much as the standards language affect. And he sees that changing a language is not decay. It's not a sign of decay, but actually it's a sign of evolving. And the last thing, which he said, the history of English is really the stories of all who speak it. It's not only like the English speaking in the English speaking countries, because even nowadays, especially nowadays, English is spoken around the world, around the globe. So all of these dialects, all of these accents affect into shaping English. Last but not least, yes, David Crystal's contribution is quite huge, and he's like a bridge between academic study and the public understanding, because he has not stayed in textbooks and writings. Actually, he transferred his writings onto the stage. And he says he was very worried when he started OP because he thought that people might not understand. But then, surprisingly, he found out that people felt more closer to the texts because they were saying the same as the time when it was written, the text. And he actually he has helped readers and also the audience to appreciate the richness of language and literature as well. And these are the list of resources that I have used for this presentation. And thank you. If you have any questions, any comments, we would be very happy to receive. Mamsa Sangar, if you have got anything, I'm done.
Very good, excellent slides from you. Again, we are sorry for the issues that you have encountered during presenting with the Professor David Crystal's powerful video speech. So before taking the, any questions, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand at the bottom of the Zoom, or you can just text it, type it in the chat box. For the next week, we have another speaker, Professor David Harrison, that talks about endangered on documenting, preserving languages. Also, Sokar, I think we have questions to you. Someone called Sangar Najim. How does performing Shakespeare in OP change our understanding of puns, rhymes, and wordplay that are lost in modern English?
Thank you for the question. I think I somehow answered the question, but okay, let's clarify more. Even in the examples that I gave, yes, it does change our understanding. For example, you are an audience and you go to a play of Shakespeare that's performed, and the characters are pronouncing the text using modern English. I give two examples. If you go there and the rhyme of the text, the musicality, the meter, they are lost. In modern English, it's different. The pronunciation of these words are different from how Shakespeare used these words. Even in the puns, I think there's an example which I have not included here. I think it's in Hamlet, if I'm not mistaken. Again, and the use of H and the use of THH, TH and S. I mean, there are many, many examples. I'm quite sad because I couldn't include everything here. But yes, it does change our understanding. How you are going to appreciate the richness of Shakespeare's language. I mean, and in a pronunciation which is quite far from what he put. And I don't know if the answer is clear, but yes, the originality of the text is lost in modern English. If you want to get even Mamusta, even if using OP alone, there's no single version of OP. OP comes with challenges as well because we have got like sometimes even David Crystal himself, he says that sometimes I had to guess a pronunciation because they don't have enough resources. So yes, we sometimes face problem, but so just imagine even in OP we face problems. So how about in modern English? I don't know if the answer is clear or not.
Thank you so much, Francis. I think that's the message. He says that I got good answer. Well, thank you too. Another one called Omar Ahmad Mamsa Omar says that so we can say this standardization is dynamic process according to OP. Another
It
participant.
is dynamic, but let's just be, there's a fact, Mamsa, that evolving language is a natural process. It's not like, for example, it's not decaying a language. Even in the video, Crystal himself clarified that issue that we are kind of, we have got this feeling that with the coming of AI, the language might be lost and this fear that we have. But he says that we don't know. Even with the coming of internet, we had the same expectations and they didn't come true. Well, in contrast, internet enriched the language, not, let's say, affected in a negative way.
Thank you so much. Someone called Jack raised hand. Yes. Yes, please go ahead.
So,
Hello, Jack.
so
I'm sorry, do you have a question?
So can stylistics apply to all literature as well?
Okay. So I think that the question is it all?
Is that all, Mr. Jack? Is that your question that can stylists?
How long has stylistics been studied and gained attention for?
Sorry.
We cannot hear you, Jack. Please. You can
Well, if he could write in the text, in the message box, that would be better. And as for his first question, that is Stylistics is applicable for all literary works, yes. It's not only the study of old and classic literature. It's not only for English alone. Stylistics is, let's say, an approach, a tool that we can use to, let's say, analyze all kinds of texts, not only literature. It's applicable for all kinds of texts.
There is a note in chat box, please, my dear participants, that if you would like to receive a certificate for this special event, please type your full name in correct English spelling, and please with your email address in the chat. So it seems that also, is there any research done analyzing prosody or the phonological aspect of Shakespeare's work using OP? I imagine that with a different pronunciation, chemistries, shifts, and different tone units.
Yes, actually, it's, I mean, as I said, within this short time, those short period, I wouldn't be able, of course, to clarify all these issues. And I wouldn't even dare without David Crystal being here with us to do all these judgments. I wouldn't do that, of course. But yes, I mean, OP, the original pronunciation was a groundbreaking, let's say, project. As it started with Romeo and Juliet, as I said, they were very worried at the beginning when the Shakespeare's Globe in London first staged Romeo and Juliet in OP, and then because it was a very successful experience, then many other plays followed by, which I think right now more than 20 plays are staged with OP. And as I said, I wouldn't go into details because it needs more details, definitely.
Okay, sorry. It seems that participant is engaging your speech, Mr. Sokar, so there are a lot of questions. If you don't mind.
Brilliant. Of course, I will be happy to receive. Yes, let me read that one from Aram Fazal. So, regarding to puns in Shakespeare's work, can we say that they are often depend on opioid? Yes, not all of them. I mean, let's be honest. Not all of them. If you go and read, David Crystal's works, because he has many, including his videos and his interviews on the topic. Not like, for example, not all the puns on all his works depend on OP, but there are many examples that depend on OP, and without OP, the real meaning, the real understanding is lost.
Well, good. Also, on the question about Shakespeare, is it right Shakespeare before died tried to change language to a new one?
Sorry, Mamsa, would you like to say anything?
No, please.
It's not Shakespeare. If you have information about the Elizabethan era, everything was let's say changing. Not only language. Language is one of the things that were changing. Yes, there's a great shift, especially in vowels, assonance, I think. Everything was changing, not language alone. And language, yes, because we have got England was no longer during Elizabeth's time. They were not following Catholicism anymore, and people were getting introduced to other languages like French, German, Greek. That's why. And they were borrowing words. Even right now, in modern time, we know that. I don't know, I'm not quite sure of the percentage, but the majority of the words are not English originally. English has borrowed from even expressions, even some grammar forms, from everything. And David Crystal, he does mention this. Even he. In one of his interviews, he says there are some examples in Shakespeare's works. You can say, you can find out the characters say that, as if you are speaking in a language which is new, yeah, which shows that, yes, language was evolving during that time. And sometimes, it's used as a mock, like mocking a character mocking another character, because he's using this newness of the language. So yes, language was evolving, and it was not only Shakespeare. Yes, Shakespeare has created words, has coined words and idioms. He has contributed, but his creation is not that big. I think he has coined around 100 words, I think, but the language itself was everywhere.
My dear participants, as you can see in the chat box, that's the upcoming events for the 2 next weeks in September. Will be presenting first Professor David Harrison, and in the late of September, we will invite Professor Michael Child. Okay, I think we have another question from Gashin. The borrowing words from other languages is applied in almost every language. There's a contribution. Thank you so much, Gashin. So, dear participants, we will once more replay the Professor David Crystal's powerful video speech, indeed, talking on reflecting about the language, the future of linguistics, the AI linguistics, and other important issues reflecting or related to the field. So just give me a minute. Okay.
Well, many thanks everyone for your interest in my work. I'm sorry I can't participate in your event in a live way, but I'm happy to make some comments in relation to the very interesting questions you sent me. In one of them, you ask about the most significant trends shaping English today, and in another about the rise of digital communication. You also ask about the future of linguistics in relation to globalization and language contact. Well, to my mind, these are all related issues. Mind you, predicting the future in relation to language is never wise. It means predicting the future of global society and of technology. Think for a moment about the speed of change. A mere 5 years ago, nobody was talking about AI. Now everybody is. And people are asking what effect it could have on the global status of English, and of course on languages as a whole. So I'll focus on that in these few remarks. Now, as with the internet generally, it's far too soon to make any confident predictions. Everything depends on what will be the, as it were, the power behind the AI throne. The history of language shows over and over that a language becomes internationally used because of the political or economic or other power of the people who speak it. It'll be no different with this new kind of power. Whoever becomes the dominant force behind AI will exercise linguistic influence both on languages in general and on varieties of a language in particular. In some ways, the situation is no different from what happened when the internet arrived in the 1990s. There was a widespread expectation then, I remember it well, that there would be major linguistic change. We now know, over 30 years later, that that didn't happen. The internet simply gave an online voice to what was already linguistically out there. Yes, there were some novelties, such as some new abbreviations, especially associated with text messaging, and new communicative styles reflecting the constraints of short messaging services, for instance. But the overall use of the language today is not very different from what it was before the internet arrived. It would be more accurate to say that English and other languages has expanded rather than changed. New varieties increasing its expressive richness. Now, AI, in my mind, is doing the same thing, but of course on a much larger scale. It's giving a new linguistic presence to what is already there. As we know, AI operations they suck up as much linguistic data as they can before the present responses to questions. The output can only be as good as the input. So I'm not expecting to see any significant differences in the linguistic character of the responses that an AI algorithm produces. I've looked at several such outputs, as I expect many of you have, and there have been no surprises to date, really. What I have noted is the predominance of American English in spelling and punctuation, and occasionally in vocabulary and grammar, as the USA is where the big guys currently are. Power, once again. Well, that could change if bigger guys emerge in other parts of the English-speaking world. Or, of course, if even bigger guys in other language communities eventually come to dominate the AI universe. However, from the point of view of language teaching, there could be some change affecting the role of teachers. I suspect they will need to become more like knowledge managers. What AI comes up with is accurate enough, as it merely reflects what has been imported by the algorithms. It's what AI doesn't say in its summaries that is the issue. It presents, inevitably, only a partial picture. And I can imagine classroom scenarios where the teacher knows that there's more to an AI answer than is being shown on screen. So knowledge managers, perhaps. Cultural knowledge is likely to be especially affected. You ask about that. A generalization will be made that simply doesn't apply to many situations. And without teacher guidance, students will innocently assume it's universally varied. As AI improves its scope, global cultural varieties will be increasingly acknowledged and invalid generalizations will reduce, certainly. Indeed, some systems are already alerting readers to the limitations of their responses and incorporating some features of global dialect variation. But for the immediate future, and some argue for the long-term future as well, there's no replacing the human intuition that can take an AI response and judge its accuracy and its applicability. Well, yeah, language is central to all this, isn't it? And so it's obvious that linguistics will continue to have a major role to play in describing and analysing all that's happening and drawing attention to problematic issues. I can imagine psycholinguistics and sociolinguistics, these perspectives being especially important. Could well be the biggest contribution to public understanding that the subject has ever made. And you ask about young students. Well, who better to develop this new field? What should we call it? AI linguistics. Well, they live in an online world in a way that older linguists like me do not. So I end this brief reflection with a warm wave to them as they set out on their journey into this new linguistic world. As Shakespeare nearly said, "O brave new world that has such algorithms in it." Bye for now.
Okay, that was a powerful speech from Professor David Crystal. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Mr. Sokar, anything from you as final words?
Well, thank you, Mamsa, for the opportunity. I was very glad to be here and talking about such an important topic. Inshallah, this meeting will be transcribed and will be available for everybody to cite it and to get benefit from it. Thank you. My regards.
Thank you so much. That was really a good news. So inshallah, we are going to transcribe this event, and as Mr. Sokar mentioned, that will be available for all of you. So thank you so much for all for being here with us this evening, and it has been an honor to celebrate the work of Professor David Crystal together. So we look forward to welcoming you again in upcoming events in the next weeks in September, as I mentioned, with Professor David Harrison and Professor Michael Child. So thank you so much and take care. Goodbye.